Welcome, everyone. We are delighted that you are here for this pre-departure briefing. This special online travel log has been produced and is being presented by the full-time travel professionals of Please Go Away Vacations. Today, we are going to be talking about the upcoming Best of the British Isles, featuring the 4 distinctly different countries of England, Wales, Scotland, plus Ireland. You will have an in-depth experience of all of those. The dates of this feature travel experience, June 7 through 21, 2019, and it is cooperatively presented for your consideration and enjoyment by Please Go Away Vacations in cooperation with Colette Vacations. Your personal hostess on this feature is going to be Paula Axman. I need to make a correction on that screen because, quite honestly, as of May 1 this year, Paula started her 31st year with Please Go Away Vacations and currently serves as president of our organization, filling the shoes of Marilyn Kapke, who held that position since August 1, 1972, and then Marilyn retired in January of this year. So, Paula, why don't you welcome the people that you're going to be traveling with and express any opinions you want to at this time.
Okay, thank you, Larry. Well, I'm really looking forward to this tour, and I must say that I did the exact or pretty much the exact same tour a few years ago and enjoyed it so much that when we were offering it again this year, I immediately said I'd like to go again. There's just so many different things, and truly Ireland and the part of the world that we're going to in Europe is one of my favorite places. It's such a laid-back lifestyle, and we're not traveling on, for the most part, we're not traveling on major highways. We're on little windy local roads, and we see so many more things than you can ever imagine. So glad that you all have decided to join me, and look forward to traveling with you and meeting the new people and traveling again with several of you that I've been with before. So, Larry, why don't you give us some ideas of some of the things that we'll be seeing?
I'd be delighted to, Paula. We're going to take a brief tour of the highlights of many of the things that you're going to be seeing. First of all, let's start out with this map that's up on your screen. It is an in-depth experience of the 4 countries that I mentioned, and it is an ideally styled itinerary, in our opinion, in that you are not going to be having to get up every morning, get your suitcases out, and be on a bus early. You can see the black dots there. Those have numbers in them, and that indicates the number of nights that you will be spending. So, for instance, in London, you'll be spending 2 nights. You work your way on up to Scotland. In Edinburgh, you'll be spending 2 nights. Dublin, Ireland, you'll be spending 2 nights. Killarney, you'll be spending 2 nights. And then you are interspersed between those times with overnight stays in delightful little quaint areas like Stratford-upon-Avon, home of Shakespeare, and things like that. It's an in-depth experience that you're going to really enjoy, and we're so delighted that you're going to be with us on this departure. What would London be without the Tower of Big Ben? It's the corner piece of the Houses of Parliament. And actually, Big Ben is not the tower that you see here, but it is the bell which is within the tower that tolls the Westminster chimes on the quarter hour, half hour, 3/4 hour, and hour. It's an iconic emblem of one of the most famous cities in the whole world, London. You're going to have the opportunity normally, and this cannot be guaranteed because the Guard has somewhat of a mind of its own, but we've always been fortunate in being able to see the changing of the Guard, walking down the Mall, M-A-L-L as they call it, and in effect changing the Guard at St. James Palace, but then marching over to Buckingham Palace to take their positions of guarding the Queen's Palace, Buckingham Palace. Westminster Abbey is also right nearby. You're going to be able to see this. It's a famous building. It's a coronation site of kings and queens, and again is an iconic structure of the city of London, and part of your experience that you will see from the outside as you wind your way through the environs of London. St. Paul's Cathedral. Quite often, this is seen from a distance because it's way in the eastern part, known as East London, but it is where Prince Charles and Prince Diana were married. Maybe we can think back to them walking down the stairway of St. Paul's Cathedral. And it's also an iconic emblem of the resilience of London going back to World War II, because it survived the bombing and the blitzkrieg of the German bombers. Had a bomb go through the roof of St. Paul's Cathedral, and fortunately it did not go off. The surrounding areas of structures near St. Paul's Cathedral were all bombed out and have since been rebuilt, but it is an indication of pride for the people of London because they withstood the blitzkrieg, and this building survived even the entry of a German bomb through its roof that did not go off. The Tower of London Bridge. Many people refer to this as London Bridge, but it's not. It's the Tower of London Bridge. It's adjacent to the famous Tower of London, which is where the crown jewels are housed. And it's on a span of the Thames River. And it's one of the things that, again, is part of the iconic skyline of London that you will be enjoying. Windsor Castle. We've added a feature for you to go out and experience Windsor Castle. Now, you will recall that the latest royal wedding took place at Windsor Castle. It's out in the country, and it is where the Queen is in summer residence quite often, or if she's away from Buckingham Palace, then, of course, she normally is in Windsor Castle. It is filled with emblems of the history of England going back to the days of the Knights of the Round Table, and brings truly a different perspective to what you might think about England. And we, as I say, have added this as a bonus feature on this tour for you to experience along with Paula. You're going to be going away from London, and you're going to be going and seeing famous Stonehenge. This is a picture that I took several years ago when I had the privilege of hosting this same tour, and I agree with Paula. It is outstanding, and one our organization has presented to travelers many different times. These are a couple of ladies from Ness City, Kansas, who are standing in front of Stonehenge. The true meaning of Stonehenge is in question, but it is breathtaking. And when you are there, you're going to be amazed at how human beings, without the machinery that we have today, could raise those large lintel stones into position. And not only are they on top of those positions, but they are positioned above on stone pegs that are in the support pillars. It's an amazing feat, and it is where Druids and people that observe that type of belief still to this day assemble periodically to practice their religion. You're also going to be going to the famous town of Bath, and it gets its name because of the Roman baths, such as this one right here, that are still in existence. And you will have the opportunity to be at this bath, take the picture. This is another picture that I took several years ago. And again, it brings the fact that England at one time was part of the Roman Empire. And you'll still see some of the stone fortifications in and around London, indicating the presence of the Roman Empire. From England, you're going to be crossing the Irish Sea, and you'll be going aboard. Your motor coach will drive right on a vessel similar to this, and it's a quite lengthy journey across the Irish Sea. As I recall, about 4.5, 5 hours, something like this. Plenty of time to roam, relax, get a bite to eat, enjoy the surroundings, and it's an amazing introduction to what awaits you in Ireland. They have movies going on if you want to attend. They have television. They have reading rooms. It's a very fast passage of time as you cross the famous Irish Sea. Once you arrive in Ireland, you will have the opportunity to learn about the city of Waterford's history. You can see right here, this emblem bears a date of 1266, and it's named for the namesake of the town, Geoffrey of Waterford, a Dominican scholar of Arabic, Greek, and Latin, lived here. It's amazing that the structures that are that old are still in place and utilized to this day. Also, while you're at Waterford, you will have the opportunity to experience the Waterford Crystal Factory. You'll actually see them etching the famous Waterford crystals, such as we see right here on your tour of the Waterford factory. And again, it adds to your understanding and appreciation of the countries that constitute the best of the British Isles. Also, while you are at and in Ireland, you'll be able to go to the town of Blarney, site of the famous Blarney Castle. Now, we really hesitate to suggest that you go to the top of Blarney Castle. It's very uneven. It does not have handrails. And really, the reason that you might want to go to the top of Blarney Castle is so that you could kiss the Blarney Stone, so that forever after, according to legend, you would have the gift of Blarney or ability to speak at any time. Also, one of the things that you're going to see when you're in Blarney and around Blarney Castle and Blarney Woolen Mills, which are an ideal place to buy woolen goods to bring home from Ireland, you're going to find indications like this called hole in the wall, holes in the wall. If you refer to or listen to the Irish talk about holes in the wall, same thing true in England. Actually, what they're referring to is an ATM window where you can go and exchange money. And yes, you can exchange money if you want, change it into the currency of the country that you're visiting. But holes in the wall are just a bit of the vernacular used by the people of Ireland as well as the rest of the British Isles. Blarney Castle we mentioned. This is that famous structure. Again, we caution you about walking to the top. Of course, we can't tell you that you can't, but quite honestly, for safety reasons, we don't include it as a thing that we do because it can be wet, can be slippery, and as you get to the top, as I say, you would have a view of about 3 stories high, and you would have the opportunity to kiss the Blarney Stone, which means you lay on your back and bend over backwards, and it's quite a contortionist act to kiss the Blarney Stone, but you then are supposedly, as I say, forever after having the gift of Blarney. Ireland is known as the Emerald Isle, and as you pass through the countrysides that Paula alluded to, the little quaint towns and villages, you're going to see that the countryside truly is emerald, as you see here. Also, as you go out into the countryside, you're going to be going to some cemeteries. Here you see great representations of the Celtic cross, the Celtic burial crosses, and they say Celtic. They don't say like Celtic, like the Boston Celtics. That truly is a mispronunciation. Celtic, as if with a K, is the correct pronunciation, and these, as I say, are examples of the famous Celtic burial crosses. Doors of Dublin are something that you'll see posted on postcards and things like this that you can bring home. Georgian in design, long, large apartment complexes will have these beautifully decorated entryway doors, and they are each with a different type of decoration, and they are dubbed the Doors of Dublin, and great opportunity to take a photograph of a memory that you will bring home with you, or if you want to buy a postcard with the Doors of Dublin on them, I'm sure you'll have that opportunity. You'll also go into St. Patrick's Cathedral, and it's a famous, beautiful cathedral. But what we would really ask that you do when you first go in is to look down at the floor, as you see here. It's mosaic tile inlaid of different geometric designs, and it's an amazing feat of design and application, and to me, a very memorable part of the experience of St. Patrick's Cathedral. Also, when you're in Wales, you're going to stop at this village. I'm not going to pronounce it. I can't. It's the world's longest named town. And take a picture of it, and I'm sure your foreign tour host will be able to pronounce it for you. But it's also a great place to bring back gifts or memorabilia of your stay in Wales. Now, Wales, again, is a completely different country than England and Ireland, and takes on a large extent of the natural resources that are found in Wales, and you'll see what we mean in just a minute. When you are in Wales, one of the things that you might want to bring home as a memento of your visit to this country is a love spoon, or sometimes referred to as a wedding spoon. It's really quite a feat of work and art. Out of a single piece of wood, there is often carved what you see here. It's a chain, and then at the end of the chain, you will have areas that are cut out. You'll see that in the lower right-hand corner of that chain, there is a pendulum swinging, and within that pendulum, there are some round balls that have been carved, remember, all out of a single piece of wood. The legend is that as a gentleman courted a lady and was trying to convince her to marry him, he would present a love spoon. And the number of balls that are encircled and enclosed and carved out of that single piece of wood indicate the number of children that he hopes to have. And in this instance, you can see on the right-hand side, 2 balls, on the left-hand side, 2 balls. So I guess if a person would have given this, he would have wanted 4 children. I happen to have, as does Marilyn, in our home, hanging on our fireplace, one of these with a double set of balls because we have 2 daughters. Great memorabilia to bring home. Also, when you are in Wales, you'll go out to Carnarvon Castle, and this is where the Prince of Wales is crowned. And it is, if you've ever thought about Robin Hood and the castles that are present in his movies and things like this, this is what you see here. You can see the ramparts, you can see the structures, and it is an amazing area, again, depicting the history, the culture, and the atmosphere that you are going to be experiencing in Wales. When you are in this castle, we urge you to go to the Queen's Balcony, which is this archway where the Queen and royalty can stand and look down on the subjects of the country standing in the courtyard below. Again, adding to the pomp and pageantry of what England, Wales, Scotland, and Ireland are. When you're in this area too, you're going to be going to the quaint city of Grasmere. And if you've ever thought back to the early writings of the authors of this area of the world, this is a memorable sight. The little meandering creek going through the town of Grasmere, it's just out of a movie set when you're there. You're going to see, as I said, evidence of the natural resources of Wales. Slate walls are everywhere because that is in abundance. Wales also has a lot of coal mining, you will recall, and you see the use of the natural resources in walls here, but you also see the use in buildings and in slate roofs. It's somewhat different than the other parts of the world insofar as the structures that are built, but again, utilizing the natural resources of the country of Wales. When you are in this area of Grasmere, we talked about the early authors. This is the cemetery of where William Wordsworth is buried. And of course, we all are familiar with his works. And it brings back, sort of in a round circle fashion, what we learned in school. And it becomes alive to an extent, even though it's in a graveyard, when you are able to see his tomb. And what we really recommend that you buy while you are in Grasmere is the famous Grasmere gingerbread. Now, this little tiny house is just a hole in the wall, really. But Sarah Nelson started back in, I think, about the 1600s, if I'm remembering right, baking Grasmere gingerbread. It has become famous. It's wonderful to bring home as a gift. It's wonderful to buy and eat. And you walk in and you only have about 2 or 3 feet to turn around in. You come right back out. But if you're so inclined, we would recommend this as a pleasant, savory experience when you visit Grasmere. You're also going to visit the old blacksmith shop at Gretna Green. Now, this has been featured in movies, it's been featured in novels, and it's sort of an interesting history because it actually existed. And we are at here an old blacksmith shop, but underneath it you see marriage room. Now, the history of the area that is reflected here is that there was a strict age regulation against marriage in Wales. And you had to be of a certain age, but what the young couples would quite often do is they would go up to Gretna Green, which is on the border of the adjacent country, and they would go to this blacksmith shop, and the smithy would actually administer the wedding vows and would conclude and seal the wedding vows by striking his anvil with a hammer. And this is part of the history of what you will be seeing. And Gretna Green, when I took this picture, had just been named as the UK's attraction of the year, the world famous blacksmith shop of Gretna Green. Certainly different than what we have here at home, but you travel to learn this different things. So now you're going to be in Scotland, and this is Edinburgh Castle, and it looks down on the city of Edinburgh. Quite often you can go up in there as part of our feature tour. A lot of it depends on weather, and sometimes they have activities going on within the castle that, just like the White House, might bar admission. But you will be able to see this Edinburgh Castle from any place within Edinburgh because it sits on a real high hill. And it's, again, part of the history of now Scotland. We have a lot of conversation going on in the political world today about the Wall of Mexico. Walls are nothing new. Hadrian's Wall was built back in AD 122, and it was built to keep the hordes of people from migrating in from the north and attacking and settling the area. It's almost like history of today is being repeated, but it's Hadrian's Wall, or Hedon on the wall, and you'll see remnants of the Roman Empire because the Romans built this wall, as I say, AD 122. This is some of the evidence remaining of the wall. 121 AD, Hadrian's Wall went nationwide. Again, the walls of today's conversation are nothing new to the history of the world. So you'll be there, you'll be able to see this type of thing, and you'll be able to learn. Now, Shambles. You're now in the city of York, and Shambles was an ancient street, sort of occupied by butchers and things of this nature, but it is where we get the phrase that things are in a shambles. And the reason that we have this colloquialism is because the buildings are in shambles. The tax structure was that the square footage of the lowest floor, or the first floor, was what determined the amount of tax that was paid on a building. So the ingenious people built up to the second and third stories and built out over the street so they could have more square footage in their residence. And the additions which they did in the second and third stories were not figured or calculated in the amount of tax they paid. And these buildings tend to sort of cave in over time. It's a meandering street called Shambles. And again, that's where the phrase that we use today, the origin, things are in shambles or in disarray. Coventry Cathedral. Evidence of the Second World War, Coventry Cathedral was completely bombed out. But with the strong will of the people of the British Isles, it was rebuilt. And you'll see the new cathedral that was rebuilt after World War II. And you'll also, however, see that in the keeping of their history, what the next slide will show is that they have maintained the bombed out walls as part of the present rebuilt cathedral. So you have the ruins of World War II evident and the brand new rebirth of a brand new cathedral. You're also going to be going, as we mentioned in our opening remarks, to the city where William Shakespeare grew up. This is the house in which he was raised. Go to the second floor and look at the windows that obviously he gazed out of as a young man. And his father was a tanner, a butcher and a tanner, sold the leather goods and the hides of animals out of this building. And it's at Stratford-upon-Avon. And you'll have the opportunity to see this building, see the gardens and back, go inside, and that awaits you on this itinerary. Also, when you are in Stratford-upon-Avon, we have arranged for you to have your choice of one of two things. You can go out and see Anne Hathaway's cottage, the lover of William Shakespeare. If you've ever wanted to see a perfect example of a thatch roof, then this is something that you want to do. She also has a lovely garden around her cottage, and it is something that may be to your liking, or you have as an alternative the opportunity to take a cruise on the River Avon. Now, I've had the privilege of doing both, and it would be hard-pressed for me to tell you which was my favorite. They are both wonderful things to experience, and so these experiences of your choosing, one or the other, await you on this experience. So that's a brief overview of what you're going to be seeing and doing, sort of the travelogue portion of this presentation. But now let me turn it over to Paula, who is going to, again, be your personal hostess on this trip. But I know she wants to visit with you about some of the nuts and bolts of this particular departure, things that will really make your travel experience more easy for you at this time. So Paula, please.
Okay, thank you, Larry. You should have all, hopefully by now, received your document packet in the mail. So what I'm going to do is kind of go through some of the highlights, point out things. I'm certainly not going to read the entire booklet to you, but you would have received a booklet similar to this that is the vacation document, has your name on it, and there's lots and lots of important information and things that probably will answer a lot of your questions. So please do take time to read that thoroughly from cover to cover. So in that booklet, you're going to find several things. First of all, there's going to be a copy of the hotels where we'll be staying. In addition, there is a loose sheet that also is a copy of the hotels. The loose one is to leave with family. You can certainly make extra copies and also leave with neighbors so that in an emergency they would have some information to be able to reach you. Of particular importance in the package, you're going to find some luggage tags and stickers. There is one that on the right-hand side that says Colette, Guided by Travel. You can certainly place your name and address on there if you want to. You don't have to, and nowadays a lot of people are a little hesitant to actually place their name and address onto something where it could be seen when you're flying out of the airport, wherever your departure gate is, and see that you're checking a bag, you're obviously going to be gone and your home is empty. So what you may want to do is to maybe put a business address, perhaps put a neighbor or family member that lives in the same town And of course, you certainly can feel free if you feel safe to go ahead and put your home address on there. That particular luggage tag should be attached to your luggage when you depart from home. That has your name and a phone number. I certainly would put a phone number where they could reach you if it were somehow separated from you and didn't reach our destination with us. You also have a gray sticker on the lower left-hand corner. That one is what is going to be used to get our luggage into our hotel rooms each time we move from city to city. Again, you can certainly put on there whatever you feel comfortable. Your name is important. But that tag you are not going to place onto your luggage until we reach our first hotel. So don't attach it. The elastic would probably not withstand the loading and unloading that the airlines do. So be sure that you keep that handy so that you can put it on when we get to London. You also would have gotten a name tag. I know that we do have several people in our group that go by a name other than their legal name. So I will have a different insert that has the name you prefer that you can insert into your name tag that I will give you wherever I see you. And I think most of you are leaving from Wichita, so I will give that to you at that point. Now, do pay attention to the name that's on your booking and put that name onto the hotel tag. When the tour manager and driver are trying to coordinate with the hotel rooms, it gets a little confusing for them if you put a name other than your legal reservation name. So kind of be aware of that when you're putting it on there. There also is a little form, a little third of a paper that shows you how to go about attaching the main Colette tag. It's pretty easy, and you just wrap it around itself and pull it, make a loop and pull it back through, and it's very secure to stay on your luggage. You also would have gotten several of these bright green stickers, and the purpose of these is entirely different. When we're going to get SkyCaps for assistance to get luggage and claim it from luggage carousels and things of that nature, this is the only way that a SkyCap and or I can tell whose luggage is whose without having to read them. There's a lot of, even if you think that yours is very different, it never fails. You're going to find some that are just like it. So these are for identification. Now, you did receive more than one of these, and you're only allowed to take one large bag for the tour. And so the reason you have extras is we do recommend that you place these around your carry-on bags, camera bags. Some ladies even do purses. And if you see one of these setting a bag that has one of these attached and there's no one around, you certainly want to call attention to it, and then keep in mind that if you were to leave something maybe in a hotel lobby or unaccompanied on a bus or something, that one of our tour group is going to notice that bright green sticker and hopefully make sure that it isn't lost. So that's kind of the importance of these, and I will have extra. They sometimes, after they're handled in and out of a few hotels, if you need more for the return home, please let me know. This is a picture of the correct way to attach them. The back peels off. You can kind of bend it and it'll come apart. You can take it off, wrap it around the handles of the luggage and not put it flat on the sides. They probably aren't going to stay on too good, and if that's the side that's down when they're going around the carousel, we're not going to see it. So this is the correct use. Here is another picture of a bag, and again, it's showing you the correct way to attach the green sticker, and as well as the other tags that you have for the hotel as well as for the identification. Notice that there is a padlock on the luggage, and many people do like to do that, and you can do that again nowadays. For a while they said not to, the airline would indicate that you shouldn't do that. However, it must be a TSA approved lock, and you'll notice kind of on the top of that silver lock, there's a little red logo which indicates that that is a TSA approved, and it should be perfectly all right to use those. It is important that for the airline that you do follow the rules, and the tour rules are the same, and that's for your large piece of luggage, the height, the length, and the width. Each of those measured one time should not exceed 62 inches. In addition, your suitcase cannot weigh over 50 pounds. For an international flight, we shouldn't have to pay to check luggage as long as you follow those rules. However, in the event that you were to have a bag larger than the 62 inches, and that normally when you go to measure, you don't count the, or you do count, you count the handle and the wheels on the bottom. So from the floor up to wherever your handle, when it's pushed down in, is, and then your width and your length. So exceed that and you will have to pay. And those overage, whether it's overweight or oversized, those charges can be considerably. I have seen people pay almost $100 when they didn't follow those rules. Here are some examples of some of the sizes of luggage. The large one on the right is a 62-inch piece of luggage. The middle one is a carry-on that would meet the 18-inch rule that is in the book. For a carry-on, it says it shouldn't exceed the 18 inches high. The one on the left is also a carry-on that would nicely fit under the seat on a bus or on the airplane. So those are just kind of some examples. There are nowadays some smaller bags similar to the one on the left that do have handles that you can extend and pull through airports, which are really, really nice. We don't ever know exactly how far we're going to go when we change planes, but you do need to keep in mind that when we're going from a domestic gate to an international gate, it normally is quite a distance. So when you're packing and planning, you may want to keep that in mind. While we're talking about changing gates, if anyone does need assistance with a wheelchair, just for the distance or anything like that, do please let us know. You can give us a call and tell us so that we can pre-request that so that it's waiting for you as you disembark the plane. As I mentioned, wheels are a really good thing nowadays. Even some of the newer ones that you can kind of pull along, instead of pulling, you can push them and have the swivels, and so there's a lot of different ones out there on the market. While we're out touring in the daytime, which we'll be doing pretty much every day while we're gone to some extent, it's nice to have something similar to this, a backpack or some kind of a smaller bag, so that you can have any medications. You can have an umbrella or a little fold-up rain jacket, anything of that nature, camera, extra batteries, all those kinds of things that you need during the daytime, so that you can easily have this in the overhead, because in Europe you're going to find that the overhead in the buses are very, very small. Anything of any size is not going to fit up there, and the only other alternative would probably be to have it at your feet. So you might want to do something similar to this. You could have your passport, credit cards, some money in the little zipper bag that you could tuck way down at the bottom of your bag and have it safely in there as you're out wandering around or viewing the sites as we go throughout the countries. The 311 rule is very important, and the airline will allow each person to take on a 1-quart bag of liquids or gels, and all of your liquids and gels must be in a container that is 3 ounces or less. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't take a tube of toothpaste or deodorant, lotions and things of that nature that are bigger than 3 ounces. It just means that you must place those into your checked luggage and not carry them on. If you go to carry on anything that is not in your 1-quart bag or is larger than the 3 ounces, the airline more than likely will confiscate it and throw it away, and you will not see it again. That's true of bottled water or anything of that nature. You can buy it after security, and that's fine. What a lot of people do is have an empty bottle and then fill it once they get through security. So however you want to do that, but they will take it away if you don't comply with that rule. New in the last few weeks is TSA has also gotten very strict about any kind of powder that you shouldn't take on any powders that are more than 12 ounces, because if it's unidentifiable or they just don't think it's quite right, they're also taking some of that and throwing it away. So again, you can take it, just be sure that you put it into your big bag. So there's a lot of really important things when you're traveling out of the country to keep in mind, one of which is if you're planning to use a credit card, you do need to notify your credit card that you're going to be traveling. Mine, I can go online, which I know several of the companies are doing that, put kind of my itinerary, the countries where I'll be and the dates, so that if I go to use my credit card, it's not declined with the idea that there's maybe some fraudulent activity. So that's very important to do that. In Europe, you're going to find that not all credit cards are accepted at all places. The most widely accepted is going to be Visa, followed a distant second by MasterCard, and then way down third is American Express, and then way down, which I wouldn't even bother to take, is probably a Discover. So do keep that in mind. The booklet is indicating that you may be asked for a PIN. So if you don't have a PIN number for your card, then I would suggest that you contact your credit card company and find out what their specific requirements are. If they're going to make you use a PIN, can they provide the PIN, things of that nature, so that you're not surprised and not able to use it. You're going to also want to have some money, and you're going to need to have euros for part of the trip, and then you're also for England, the UK countries, you're going to use the British pound. So keep that in mind. What I do is I normally, when we change planes, and we're going to have plenty of time in Houston on our departure, is when we get to the international gates, there are usually several exchange booths, and that's where I plan to get some money for the countries. I'm going to plan to use my credit card as much as possible, but I think you're going to find, or at least I always have in the past, is at lunchtime, we're going to stop at some places that we would kind of call a truck stop kind of place, but they're nice. They'll have a sit-down area to eat. They'll have a cafeteria. They'll have some kind of like a quick shop where you can go in and get sandwiches from a case, a variety of ways that you can eat and choices to have. Most often they will have a minimum purchase that in order to use a credit card. And so if you're not planning to have a large meal, you're probably going to want to have some local currency for those kinds of situations. In the booklet, it will tell you, if you read through there, it does give us an idea of kind of what to plan when you're planning how much money, what to plan for lunches that are not included, as well as any dinners that are not included, so that you kind of have an idea. Gratuities is another thing that is always a big question. And again, in your book, you can read, but basically there are recommendations for who that we would want to give a gratuity and what's included. Our sightseeing people that we have that are a local guide that will step on. And again, depending on how long we have them and your level of satisfaction, there is a recommendation of $2 to $3 US per person or the equivalent in the local currency. Motor coach driver that will probably have the same one throughout. On occasion, depending what their schedule is, we might have a different one for a few days at the end if he's out of time and has to have days off. But don't worry about missing tipping someone if we're going to change drivers, because our tour manager will always kind of give us a heads up so that we know that that's coming. Also, the tour manager that we will have while we're there, the recommended for him or her is $5 to $8 or equivalent. There is also the indication that housekeeping gratuities at the hotels is not included. If we have any transfer drivers that are extra, things of that nature. And again, you can read all those details in the book. Whenever we have an included meal, the gratuities would be included for those meals. There isn't anything that is formal, so you won't need to worry about any dressy clothing. Pretty much just casual. You do want to dress in layers because the weather can be quite changeable. I don't think I have ever been to Ireland or the British Isles. There wasn't rain at some point on the tour, so be sure that you bring some waterproof shoes or at least an extra pair so that if your feet get wet, umbrella, rain jacket, something for your head. It's cool normally, and again, you've probably seen the average temperatures. Averages are just that, so do keep in mind when you're packing that it can be much warmer. It can also be much cooler. So I really think my past experience, I'm going to take a light jacket that I wear here in the spring that will be kind of comparable to the weather we would anticipate. Layers, as I indicated, are good. So if the weather changes, it may be cool in the morning, warm in the afternoon, and you can add to. I think you may find also that oftentimes it's a little cool on the bus because they're trying to keep 40-some people all comfortable, and you'll know your temperature better. But if you're normally cool, I would also have something that you could slip on the bus. We talked a little bit about the money, so do keep in mind and you could kind of get an idea of what to plan for the meals and then which days were in which countries to give you a better idea of how much currency for the local that you would need there. Obviously, the passport is one of the most important things you must remember, because if you don't have the passport, you won't be flying, you won't be boarding the plane to fly. So most important thing. Do open it and take a look so that if you have an old one that you've kept, and make sure that you do pick out the right one to take with you. The guy that you see there with all the luggage has way too much luggage, and he's not going to be able to take all that on the plane, or if he does, it's going to cost a fortune. The tour does indicate that one large piece of luggage is what you should have. That's what has been included in the price, is the luggage handling for that one bag. If you were to take a second bag, they will charge you, and it does indicate, I think it's $4 a day extra if you were to take an extra bag. So do be aware of those requirements, and that's really too much luggage. You don't want to, nobody needs all that. Another thing that is always a major question is when you have to use electrical appliance. And first of all, if you can get by without using any, or to use bare minimum, that's better yet. Do look at whatever you're planning to use. If it's a curling iron or a cell phone, camera battery, anything that, whatever you plan to use that is electrical and will need recharged. If you look at the handles or curling iron, the barrel, sometimes there's a tag on it. My battery for my camera has a little indication actually on the bottom. If you look, it may indicate that it's 110/220 or something similar to that. Sometimes I think it says 2/230. If it's a dual appliance, that's perfect, because all you'll need to do is use an adapter that will make it fit into the plugs at the countries we're at. If it doesn't, then that means that you're going to have to use a converter first, which is the little square block just outside the little plugs you see at the bottom and kind of towards the middle next to the money. You would have to first use a converter. So you would plug your appliance into the converter so that you would make it convert to the 220, and then you still would need to use the adapter so that you could plug it into the wall. So that's very important, because if you don't convert it or it doesn't self-convert, the second you plug it in, you're going to burn it up. So if you have sleep apnea machines or anything like that, really suggest that you contact the provider where you got it and find out what their recommendation is. And along that line, it's usually very good to take an extension cord so that you can reach the plug, because they're not always right where you need them when you get to a hotel room. So that's something important to think about. Temperatures are pretty much in the book. I think that pretty much takes care of everything that I'd like to share. And of course, we would like you to be sure and give us a call if there's anything that we've not covered or anything that you have questions about. Think about them and do let us know. If anyone has TSA known traveler numbers or any frequent flyer numbers for United, please do let us know, and we'll get those turned in for you if you haven't done that already. I mentioned the wheelchair. So please do review and call us. You can always reach us at answers@travelpleasegoaway.com, or you can call at 1-800-362-9347. And again, thank you all for your time.